Hi everyone, it's really great to have you all here with us today. My name is Nicole, I'm with the Environmental NGO Urgewal, and I will be hosting this session. This first session is about how the French won over their banks before COP with creative acts of civil disobedience. Talking about these topics will now be Lucie Pinson, Director of Reclaim Finance. And with that, I will leave the floor to Lucie.
I just funding this new organization, which is named Reclaim Finance, which is located in Paris and which is 100% focused on climate and finance related issues. All this week, for those who follow the webinar, you might be convinced by now that finance is a critical lever in the fight against climate change. But today, unfortunately, mainstream finance remain at the opposite end of the spectrum from social and climate justice objectives. Contrary to what the growing popularity of sustainable finance might suggest, almost all financial services are geared towards practices today that are completely based on overconsumption of natural resources and overconsumption of fossil fuels. This is why I funded Reclaim Finance to accelerate the decarbonization of financial flows. We want to eliminate the impression that current action is sufficient. And so we track and we analyze the activities of financial institutions, banks, insurers, investors, central banks, etc. And we explore the real impact. Reclaim Finance is a member of Friends of the Earth France, for which I have been working since 2013 till 2017, and then I volunteer for Friends of the Earth France on their campaign on financial institutions afterwards, since between 2017 and 2019. So my main focus has been on French financial institutions, and you will see today different examples of actions, and you will see a lot of people with yellow t-shirts, green t-shirt for Friends of the Earth France, but also yellow t-shirts, being from the organization named NV COP21, in English, Nonviolent Action COP21, which is also another affiliated organization to Friends of the Earth France. I'm not today calling you to take part in disobedience action. I'm gonna mainly speak about actions that have been organized in order to push the financial sector to stop financing fossil fuels. Why is it an important topic, and why it is still now in France? It's an unknown fact, but the French financial sector is very big. And because it's very big, it does have a high responsibility on climate change. You can see on the left that the French banking sector is the fourth biggest one worldwide. And on the right, you can also see that French asset managers might be tiny compared to the US one, but they still are among the biggest ones. So whatever they will do and whatever we will push them to do will have an impact on climate. Obviously, for you, all your eyes must be on the UK sector, which, as you can see, is even bigger for the asset management part and a little bit smaller for the banking part. So today I'm mainly gonna focus on actions that were done in order to push financial institutions in France to stop financing fossil fuels. However, I might also speak about other actions because they were quite funny or quite interesting to analyze. Maybe I should also tell you as a start that this webinar is called How Did We Win on Banks Before COP21, but it's really focusing on the actions that we were organized. And obviously an action is only good, and that's very important to keep in mind, if it's being integrated into a broader campaign strategy. And it's one of the many tactics that you need to use in order to put pressure on the UK financial institutions, but it can't work alone. Before addressing issues such as when should we organize an actions or are there key rules that we should follow, we will answer a basic question: is the quality of an action dependent on its scale? And the answer is definitely no. Obviously, when you do organize huge actions that can mobilize hundreds of activists, it's very appealing. And of course, it's very useful to organize such actions to demonstrate your capacity as a movement to mobilize widely. It's also a good way to let your targets know that it's better for them to not mess with you, and because you are in capacity to mobilize widely. And the number also shows that your demands are actually shared and supported by many people. Also, obviously, the bigger is, more media coverage you might get. And so your demands are more disseminated, and you might also make your movement know and get more people to join you. However, small actions might also be very effective. Here you have a picture of a group of activists in Bordeaux, in the south of France, who gathered in front of BNP retail agency, and to talk to the clients of the bank and to let them know about the activities of the banks when it was, and the impacts of the banks that is heavily financing fossil fuels and what impacts it will have. And these activists call BNP to move, but they also called the clients of the bank to speak their voice internally or to leave the bank. And here, these actions, contrary to the first one, obviously it's less people, so it's much easier to and quicker to organize. You don't disturb much, and you can see the banks remain open in the back. However, that's the whole point, because here you want to talk to the clients, and just here, obviously, you can expect no one to come to talk to you. It's much more complicated. So depending of your objectives, a smaller action can be also very, very effective. Here you have another picture of another stand, but in front of BNP headquarters. So it's not a retail agency, it's the headquarters of the bank. And you have a lot of people. So obviously you can imagine a lot of preparation was needed. The avenues in Paris is being blocked. So to organize such actions means that you have also to deal with safety and security concern. And here's the objective is completely different. It's not about talking to the clients, even if they can follow it on social network, and they might also know about the activities of BNP and be interested to join you or to keep the bank. But here the context was completely different. We are in a moment where the bank were suing the president of Friends of the Earth France because he took part into an action targeting the bank. And here today you can see a lot of people sitting on small homemade bench. They are wearing masks of the CEO of BNP Paribas. And so this action was about reversing the situation. Instead of suing the president of Friends of the Earth France, we say the bank CEO should be in the dock because of his responsibility in financing climate change and also for organizing tax evasions. you can, when you organize such actions, the bigger your action will be, the bigger you will have to deal with this type of situations. And remember always that as an organizer, you're responsible for the safety of the people that you mobilize. So you will need to make sure that your action is thought in advance, so you have the capacity to deal with this type of situation. Here is another kind of actions that I personally like it a lot. You can see a bunch of people. It's a group of activists in Angers, another town in France, in the West. And this picture has been taken after a week of very well prepared and coordinated individual actions. You have a group of people who decided to book as many as possible appointments in several selecting banks, all during the same week. That's very important. And they arrived to almost fully book the agenda of several selected retail agencies. But at the last minute, none of them show up at the meeting. They picked their phone and told the banking counselor that never they will open a bank account in this bank because of its responsibility in climate change, social injustice, etc., and etc. And some of them actually went to the appointment, but to tell the bank counselor exactly the same thing. So by doing this type of action, it's also a good opportunity to talk to the people working in the bank, and you might disagree with the choice of these people to work for such bank, but you will certainly agree that it's better to convince them to also support your calls and your demands and to align with you and to not align with the bank's board decisions. And I really like this action because it usually, when we do organize direct actions, we imagine young people, and it can create a division in your movement. And here you have an action that everybody can take part in. Everybody can book appointments and can cancel this appointment. And you can be like very busy, work full time. You can be a single parent with kids. You can take your phone, book an appointment, and unbook it. So it really allows you to bring everyone and then organize this type of come together in front of the banks on a Saturday when it's easier for people to have free time. And you can also come with your kids, obviously. And I'm saying all that because your choice of actions will, at the end, really depend on the resources that you have. And as a movement, beyond our creative ideas and our crazy ideas, we do have three things. We do have people. We can mobilize our friends or people who align with our ideas. We also rely on the funding that we have, the money that we can use to organize actions. And we also have, as a very, very important resources that we should not undermine, is our collective time. And we have to manage these three resources very, very carefully. And if your goal is only to push a bank that has been ignoring your demands, that haven't been responding to a letter, you might not need hundreds of activists. And maybe just a stand or maybe a 1 hour action will be, with 20 people will be enough. So you think about your actions accordingly to your resources. Also, think that before launching a campaign, that you might not win this campaign after your first action. And don't start with a huge one, because one, you need to manage your resources. So if you put all your resources in the first actions, how will you be in capacity to mobilize for second action, maybe the day after or the week after? Maybe you wouldn't have money anymore. Maybe you would not have the time to organize big coordination. But also because it's better to start small and end big than start big and end small. And this is for two reasons. The first reason is because you need to also articulate your actions to the message that you are sending to your targets. And it's better to show them that you are determined to mobilize and to only intensify and escalate your pressure on this target till you get your demands to be met. And if you go down, the banks might say, it's already the end. I will just wait and hope that these activists forget about me. If you do the contrary, it might really send the good signal that no, better for you to move now than later, because the later you wait, the stronger we will be and the more determined we will be to go after you. And also, it's also better for the movement itself and for the team spirit, because as an activist, if I take part in an actions with a lot of people, I might feel that going back to smaller actions in the same campaign, I can perceive it as a failure, and as the fact that we are getting weaker and not stronger. So don't think your action as a one shot, but try to think it in and integrate it into a longer term strategy. As a conclusion for this part, the quality of an action is not dependent on the number of people mobilized, or it's not dependent on the level of confrontation with your target. A good action is the actions that uses just enough resources to push your target to react and meet your first SMART objectives. I hope you saw what is a SMART objective in the previous webinar, but it's really an objective that is specific, that is measurable, that is achievable. I forgot what is R actually, which is time-bound and realistic, that you can meet. And your action really is here to create some movements. It's here to push your target to face a dilemma. As you can see in this picture, if you are shooting, as a goalkeeper, which is your target, should he jump on the right or should he jump on the left? And you are creating a dilemma. And so a typical dilemma is this one. You are occupying, activists are occupying an institution like a bank. Should the bank call the cops and face this type of pictures that are definitely not good for their publicity, or should they keep the activists occupying their offices forever? And here you are creating such dilemmas that is very complicated for your targets to make the right decisions. Every choice is going to be costly for them. And so when you do organize an actions, you need to think ahead of time, what I'm looking for and how is my targets going to react? And you need to have planned in advance how to react back. And that is going to make your movement stronger and not weaker. Also, you need to think about that, about potential consequences about your action, who I am going to hurt, who I am beyond the target. This action might impact other people, and you need to think about that as well. We will just go through typical questions that and typical ideas that I hope will be useful for you. The first one is when to do an actions. And when we are speaking about the financial industry, one key moment in the company's life is the AGMs. It's when the shareholders all meet. Usually it's during April and May in Europe. Yesterday or today actually we got HSBC AGM. So that's definitely a good time to mobilize, regardless that you decide to be outside or inside. Obviously, if you try to convince shareholder or to discuss with shareholder, one action might be better than other. So it really depends again what type of what is your objectives when you are organizing. Another very good time is around the climate events. So you can think naturally to organize some actions during COP. But here you can see activists dress up as snails, which are lining up to get into the Climate Finance Day. The Climate Finance Day is an event which is organized by the French financial industry, but it's an international event attending by many international financial institutions. HSBC is actually one of the institutions attending it very carefully every year. And these financial institutions need to congratulate themselves on how great they are doing on climate. And so you got activist snails in black and red. It's exactly the same colors as Société Générale Bank. And they started very far away, and here they end up at the entrance where obviously they are blocked, like nobody wants to let them in. But it's very good because you have a lot of people lining up, queuing in the queue to get inside the event. And you have a very simple message. Société Générale is lagging behind its peers on climate. And so we are snails, and we are doing it in front of a lot of people, speakers and attendees of this event. And during the World Day, people will have taken pictures and people will speak about it. And Société Générale, who was going there to shine, is definitely hurted. Beyond the AGM, beyond the climate events, you can also pick your own date, and that's all right. It can be actually very effective. But if you don't have a hook, the risk is obviously that the media don't cover your action. So maybe if it's completely out of any usual agenda, maybe it's better if you publish a report on that same day, or something else that will catch the media attention. Or if you have a very strong narrative about your campaign, you can also decide to give a deadline to your targets, and sending a letter to your targets and asking it to do A, B, C by a specific deadline. And if they don't meet your deadline, then you will take an action. It can be the day after, it can be 2 days after, but you need to be very clear that if they've missed the deadline, you will do something. And in general, I will say never bluff, because you need to deliver on your words. So sometimes it happened to us that we had prepared campaigns, we had prepared a lot of actions and to launch a big campaign, which we never had to launch because our targets actually did what we wanted them to do. But sometimes, usually, they don't meet our demands on time, so we have to do something. And that's exactly the case of this picture here, where a deadline was being sent to the bank. It's against Société Générale. Today we have a lot of pictures targeting Société Générale and BNP Paribas, and today I guess it will still be the same, unfortunately. So here we have a group of activists who have been campaigning. This is part of Friends of the Earth, and they've been campaigning against Société Générale that was advising for projects, a coal mine in Australia. Maybe you know the Carmichael mine. So Alpha Coal was the daughter of the Carmichael mine. It's the same coal basin, but southern. And several actions had been organized earlier before this action that you can see on the picture. We had published reports. We had done a lot of things. We had done a speaker tour with people coming from Australia to meet with the banks and give media interviews and to attend the AGM. And at one point, we gave a deadline to the bank, and the bank didn't meet the deadline, and they didn't do what we wanted them to do, just withdraw from the project. So these activists dumped 1.8 tons of coal in front of the bank. And this action was not only a deadline was being given to the bank, but the activists had exactly said to the bank, we are going to dump 1.8 tons of coal in front of you if you don't move. And something like online to get monies, people paying for it. We're organized as well, which was we were in 2015, and it was quite crazy to do that because we got a lot of people supporting us to organize a dumping of 1.8 tons of coal in front of a bank. And obviously, if you do this type of things, if you give a deadline, you say what you will do, you say where you will do it. Don't be too specific. Don't give the exact date because it will make the organization a little bit too complicated. But you also need to make sure that you protect yourself, and you protect yourself through the media. You also always need to think about what is gonna be the communication around these actions, and how I am gonna make sure that I am protected. And the media are very powerful for that. So here you can see that these actions, it happened very, very early in the morning, but they got a lot of media being here, and it's very clear on this picture. Also, again, I already said it, but you also need to think about the consequences of the actions. Who is gonna clean? Who is gonna pay? Fortunately here, no charge were put on the activists, and the banks deal with all that, maybe because it was afraid of bad publicity, but you need to think about it before doing it. Sometimes, going back to the topic about when should we organize an action, sometimes, so you can also put the date outside publicly, but you can also use other actions to mobilize for another bigger action. So here you have activists in front of, in and outside BNP Paribas in Paris. This activist built a pipeline to call the bank to stop financing shale gas in the United States. And you can see you have some smoke that symbolize the leaks of methane emissions. And you can see, so you have different elements in this picture. I won't go through everything now, we'll go later. But you can see this banner on the right, which is where it's written, let's meet on the 11th of April in Paris at this specific address. And these actions was part of a bigger campaign with a bigger ask, where expertise was published, a report was published by NGOs, the media already knew about it, etc., and etc. All the ingredients for a good campaign, and the demand was very, very clear. BNP, we want you to stop financing shale gas, and we were mobilizing for these big ones that you already saw. So that's we are on the 11th of April. We only organize non-violent actions and to not hurt people, and also to gain public support. However, non-violence doesn't mean a lack of confrontation, or doesn't mean that your demands are not radical. As you can see in the following pictures, that's a non-violent actions, this one as well, and this one as well. The last two pictures were done, a part of an action that aimed at stopping fossil fuels events from happening. It was just after COP21, and we were saying, hey, if you agree that we needs to be keeping global warming well below 2 degrees and as close as possible as 1.5, why are you still allowing this fossil fuel summit to happen? It's illegal, so we are going to make it to stop it if the law it's still considering it's fine to hold it. Another principle is to show instead of saying, showing, not saying. Here is also before COP21, you got some COP21, if you remember, we were in 2015, and a big thing that the state were saying that there was no money whatsoever to fight and to finance the fight against climate change and to help southern countries to adapt to climate change impacts. But in February of 2015, a big tax evasion scandal burst out, showing that HSBC was responsible for helping billions of euros to not be taxed. The day after, some activists went to the bank, took some chairs, and said, oh, we will give them back as soon as you give back the money. And this type of actions was replicated many times through the year, to the point that almost 200 shares were taken. We will give them back if you give back the money. And as you can imagine, the police and the state were much more active to go after the activists than to go after the banks that are responsible for tax evasion. And here you are definitely showing, instead of saying, how absurd is the system and that something is going wrong. Another good action, still part of the same campaign. So here you have a nursery being held in a bank, because the money that goes to tax evasion doesn't go to education, it doesn't go to healthcare, and it doesn't go to many public services. And the action was one of the many ones that were organized in banks, replicating, like here, an hospital, here, a school, here, a nursery, all public services that can be funded if we stop illegal tax evasion. Still, instead of saying, just show it, society in general, we mobilize heavily against society general, because they were, the bank is financing very heavily dirty fossil fuels, and in particular, shale oil and gas and tar sands in the US. And instead of showing and opposing how dirty is the bank, we help the bank to clean it. So here you can see that activists are cleaning the bank, and you can see they are not pretending, they are really cleaning the bank. And of course, it's funny. It gives a lot of time to you to talk to the clients. You can see someone in the background of the picture. It gives you time to also talk to the staff of the bank and to convince them to support your demand. And of course, the bank will be very silly to call the cops to evict people that are cleaning the bank. It will be quite ridiculous. And you can build, every time you have a good narrative, you can build a whole story about it. It doesn't stop at the end of your action. So here we did, I mean, a lot of cleaning actions. But also you can help the bank to clean itself by sending sponges to the bank. And when you are doing it, you send sponges, you put the address, you take a picture, you put it on social media. So it helps you as well between two big actions to keep your activists mobilized and to keep the story going on and to maintain the pressure on your target, because that's very important. Escalation is important, but also keep your target under pressure. That's very, very important. Don't let them think that you are aware and that they can just wait. Also, because internally in a bank, there is discussion going on if you are targeting them. Should we move? Should we not move? What should we do? What kind of measures should we adopt? And this discussion will pause as soon as you pause. Just for the simple reason that everybody is busy in life. Everybody is busy. And remember, when you were at school, if you did have an assignment for 2 months from now on, you will start the week before, or even the day before, or even the night before, except if someone is behind your back and telling you to do it and reminding that the demands still stand. So you need to maintain your target under pressure and keep the same demand, keep the same narrative, be consistent as well. Another rule is that a good deal of humor can be useful. It's very important to have actions. The first one I show at the very beginning with a lot of activists, very serious, but it's also be good to have some humor in your actions. And again, it's in the continuity of showing instead of saying. Here we are ahead of COP21, and the French government, especially the French president, was very proud of hosting the COP21 and was really depicting himself as the savior of climate. And so you can see people with masks of the president, François Hollande, And we are in EDF. EDF is a French utility which is operating coal plants worldwide. And EDF, which is much more known for its nuclear activity, is partly owned by the state. So here we were occupying the agency, but showing what the state should do if they were serious about saving the climate. The president should say, me as a shareholder, we are going to stop coal. Again, on the same campaign here, we did like a stunt. We rewrote a very famous song and did a dance in front of Engie. Engie is another power utility of France. And we did that just after Engie changed its name. Before it was called GDF Suez, and it was in all people's mind a dirty company, and then changed the name. So we made a song to laugh at that and to remind everyone that beyond Engie is still a dirty company. And here again, same campaign, still Engie, and we dress up as kangaroos and we attack the bank with kangaroos non-violently because we call here Engie to close a coal plant in Australia. So it was Australian kangaroos going in Engie. And finally, and I will close, you need to get the right picture. If you do organize an action, you need to think about the communication about it. So in a right picture, you need the name of your target, here EDF. You need your message very clear, stop coal. And you need your logo, who you are, Friends of the Earth. Here's a picture would have been better if we had a professional photographer that you need to think about, but also obviously the light, you can see the commercial building on the right, which is very light. Here you have the perfect picture again, you have the name of your target, you have the logos of the organization, and you have a very clear message on the banner. And here again, very clear target, very clear who you are, and very clear message. Shell gas in the United States, we accuse BNP Paribas. Thank you, everyone. That was it for me.
Thanks a lot, Lucie. That's a really great way to end this webinar.